Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Crossing the T's. Hello. Please, guys, join us in this another episode of Crossing the T's. Let me just adjust the volume. I think now it's better. A little bit more. I think now we're talking. Okay, so yes, welcome to another episode of Crossing the T's. If you guys are brand new to this show, Crossing the T's is a show where we mix linguistics in our classroom practices. So basically, we're going to use linguistics supporting our classroom practices in language teaching. Okay, this is a 30-minute show. My name is Rudy Macchiello, and guys, a few reminders before we actually start talking about it today, because we do have some very interesting things to talk about. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to hit subscribe at the end of this episode. Okay, and please, if you really enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button, which is the thumbs up right down here. Okay, somewhere down here. So please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and also to hit the like button. Okay, why should I subscribe to the channel, Rudy? Well, because we're constantly posting and uploading new content, new videos. So if you subscribe to the channel, then you don't have to constantly coming back to this channel just to see if there's a new content uploaded. All you're going to do is subscribe to the channel, and then YouTube is going to do the rest. You're going to be notified every time we upload new content. Okay, guys? So at the end of the video, if you liked it, almost no sound. Hi, Adriana. Okay, Adriana, please let me know if the sound's better now. Okay. So if you're new to this channel, again, hit the subscribe button. Okay, and you're gonna be notified every time we upload new content, and also hit the like button at the end of this episode. Okay. Please also use the chat box if you want to interact with us. Feel free to ask whatever question you want. Feel free to make comments. I'm sure you're going to have a lot to contribute to this episode. So again, guys, use the chat box. I'm keeping an eye on it. From time to time, I'm going to take a look at the chat box and see if you made any comments or if you asked some questions, okay? And if there is any trouble, like you, Adriana, thank you so much. If you having any trouble, like, oh, Rudy, I can't hear you very well, or the sound's not good, the image is not good, please also let me know, because I make some adjustments here. All right, guys? So the today's episode is why use games, okay? And before we get into the usage of games, because of course we all know that when just by pronouncing the word games in the classroom, whether we talk about young learners or adult learners, they go berserk when just by mentioning the word games, because they do love games. Whether they are very competitive or not, learners, students love games, okay? But we're going to see that there's more to using games or to gamifying your activities than just, bringing in games. There's much more to that. And we're going to see how it also um, not only encourages but helps our students in the process of a second language acquisition. Okay, but as I was saying, before we get into games, the use of games, we need to talk about some differences. Okay, guys, what's the difference that I'm going to talk about in this very beginning here? The difference between spoken and written language. All right, spoken and written language. So basically, spoken language is supposed to be simple. Why is spoken language supposed to be simple? Because of the whole dynamics that involves spoken language. When we're making use of spoken language, it's because we're trying to communicate, we're trying to engage in a conversation, or we are already engaged in a conversation. So it has to be more dynamic, it has to be faster, so it has to be simple as well. Okay. On the other hand, we have written language. Written language doesn't have the same dynamics, doesn't work the same way. We normally use written language. Well, first of, it's a man-made tool, all right? Spoken language is natural. Written language is a man-made tool. Man created, humans actually created written language, all right? And the dynamics is different, as I was saying. Why is that different? Because when we're writing or when we're exposed to a written text, we have time to pause, go back, take a look at what was written. Oh, I didn't understand. Let me go back. Let me read it again, and all these things. Okay? So the whole dynamics is already very, very different. Okay? But let's get into the details, okay? Because we do have a lot of details to talk about here. Okay, so spoken language, as I said a couple of seconds ago, spoken language is used in communication, all right? And when we're trying to communicate, there's exchange of a lot of aspects. So when we're engaged in a conversation, we have exchange of sounds, we have exchange of words, we have exchange of intentions as well. So why am I saying exchange? Because just like now, I'm communicating with you guys. So I have to make sure that the sound pattern or the phonological aspects that I'm using here are shared by you as well. Meaning that I need to make sure that you understand the sound patterns that I'm producing here. Because if I don't pay attention to that, you're not going to be able to understand whatever I'm saying. Exchange of words. I have to be careful with the words that I'm using as I'm communicating with you guys because if I make use of certain words that are not shared by you as well, you're going to be like, what are you talking about, Rudy? I don't know this word. I don't know what this word means. Or sometimes I don't know, I didn't understand why you use this word in this context. And also intentions. Because if we don't have shared intentions, like today, what's my intention here? My intention here is to have this conversation with you guys about the use of games in the classroom and the linguistic consequences that uh, gamified activities have in the classroom and the whole process of second language acquisition. So we do have this shared intentions. Well, I hope you're here, you're watching this video with the same intention, all right? Because then we're going to be able to communicate. So we do have this whole exchange of aspects when we're engaged in a communication or in a conversation, all right? And I would like you guys to go back a little bit to episode 3 of Crossing the T's. In episode 3, I showed you, there was a slide and I showed you guys how it works when we're exposed to a spoken language. I don't know if you remember that. If you don't, as soon as we're done with this episode, you can go back to the video list and you can watch episode 3 of Crossing the T's. You're going to see there's a whole schema. All right. Well, how does that work? Well, when we're exposed to spoken language, of course, at that time I was talking about written language, but when we're exposed to spoken language, we have to decode the phonological aspect, for example. One of the things we have to do. So when we try to decode the phonological aspects, or when we try to decode the construction that's being used in this conversation or in the conversation that we're engaged in, um, if we don't share these aspects with the hearer, we're going to have a miscommunication. All right. And so you can have an idea. I have here an example that I got from James Poe G, one of his studies from 2013. So here it is. Okay, guys. Uh, this is, of course, a transcription. All right. You're going to be like, Rudy, this is written. Yes, it is. But it's a transcription of something that was actually spoken. Okay. So experiments show that this these kind of butterflies, I have no idea how to pronounce that, are less likely to oviposit on host plants than that possess eggs or egg-like structures. So this is something that we would speak, or that a biologist would speak in a normal conversation. All right? Why? Because we do have use of very simple words like experiments show, butterflies are, of course, there's this adjective of the butterfly. There's something qualifying the butterfly. That's a little bit technical. We're getting into that in a minute. But basically, it's a very simple we have very simple construction and very simple words, not very sophisticated words here. So that's because when we're engaged in this kind of communication, in spoken communication, the idea is to make our hearer understand what we're saying. We want to get our messages across. Okay. And how do we avoid miscommunication? By doing this. Simple constructions, uh, simple words, everything simple, you know. Um, and sometimes even when we think that we're being simple enough, not simple, but when we think that we're being understood, maybe the hearer is going to be like, oh, okay, I didn't understand what you're saying. Can you say that again? What we automatically do, we recast, we reformulate whatever we were saying, and we try to be much simpler than we were. We try to be simple as possible, because the idea is, once again, to get the message across. All right. And uh, that's completely different from written language. Why is that completely different from written language? Because in written language, well, again, written language had origins centuries ago, for starters. Okay, when humans needed to perpetuate their culture. So that was the whole point, the whole purpose of creating written texts, because we all have, of course, but humans and we have culture, and the idea was to perpetuate that, to have that kind of register for the future generations. So that was the first purpose of creating codes, written codes, symbols. All right, and then the second purpose of written language was to make laws, rules. Because if we live in a society, the idea is that we should follow some rules, we should follow some laws, and these laws must be uh, uh, common for everyone. These laws should be universal. How are we going to make these laws universal, or these rules universal? Written texts, because then everybody can access, or everybody will have access to these rules, these laws. And when we think about laws, what do we think of automatically as well? Sophisticated language. All right. So that's the whole, of course, very briefly and very superficial, but that's why written language tend to be more sophisticated. All right. Tend to be more sophisticated with more complex constructions, bigger words, longer words, words that are not very usual in spoken conversations. All right. And in addition to that, we also have the non dynamic aspect of written language. Why is that non dynamic? Well, the whole point behind spoken language or spoken conversations is that it's immediate. In spoken conversations, it requires immediate responses, while in written language, in this kind of language written, we don't have this urge of being immediate, for having immediate responses. We don't have that. We have the time to actually pause, stop, go back, see if it worked, see if you understood. Oh, I didn't understand, so let me stop, let me close the book, for example. Let me go to the dictionary and see if I can understand some of the words, find some definitions, ask people. So this is a completely different dynamics. And that's why we can have this kind in the second box here, okay, we can have this kind of structure in written language. I'm not going to read it out loud, of course, but if you guys can take a look at this, the information is basically the same as the first box. The information is basically the same, talking about the kind of butterflies, etc., etc., but longer sentences, more sophisticated or complex constructions, different words, like, uh, like doesn't some experiments point out this is not something that we usually hear in the spoken conversation on a daily basis, of course. What we would normally say is experiments show, all right? So this would be something more common in spoken conversations, okay? So again, the dynamics is different because when we're reading or when we're exposed to a written text, we don't have actually the need to be immediate. We don't have the need to have immediate responses. All right. In or ultimate challenge as a teacher is to actually encourage our students um, to access or to be exposed to these kind of constructions, to these structures, to these words. And why do we want our students to be exposed to these constructions and words? Because they are going to make their student or students' repertoire much um, um, much improved, much more improved, actually. You know, we're going to improve. They are going to improve their own repertoire because again, there will be some times maybe in which they'll be required to actually make use of uh, more sophisticated constructions with more sophisticated words. And if they rely only on um, daily base words that they use on a daily basis, then maybe depending on the context, these words or these constructions are not going to be very appropriate. All right. But then there's a second problem. What's the second problem? Well, again, these sophisticated words and constructions, etc., they are normally in written texts, you know, and students don't like to read. They feel like reading is some sort of punishment, or that's how they basically see this in the classroom. So how do we encourage? How do we motivate our students to actually be exposed um, to a language that are normally present in a medium that are considered to be boring by our students? Good question, Rudy. How do we do that? We gamify things. Yes, we gamify everything. All right. Even with adult learners, yes, guys, even with adult learners, it's possible to gamify things even with adult learners. Okay. So, in the last episode, episode 4 of Crossing the T's, we were talking about the importance of contextualized lessons. Okay. So, again, if you didn't have the chance to watch the previous episode, as soon as we're done with this one, you can go back to the video list and take a look at episode 4, why contextualized activities, why use contextualized activities. Okay, so why do we do that? Because uh, it motivates our students basically. If we contextualize everything, they are going to feel more motivated. In games, I'm not talking about video games yet, okay, but games in general are part of our students' routine. It's always present, whether they're young learners, teenagers, or adult learners. Games are always part of it. Oh, but even adults, yes. We do have adults who like to play Uno. We do have adults who like to play uh, poker, different card games, or some board games when they are, of course, not nowadays, but when we could be part of a social gathering. there were some board games, you know, and young learners and teenagers as well. Of course, it's a bit obvious, you know. Um, so it's not so hard to motivate our students when we actually bring gamified activities or when we gamify our activities because it's part of what they do, it's part of their routines. Okay. Uh, Games inherently motivate the learners, it's automatic, um, especially video games. Now, trying to get into video games because this is something that many people see as an enemy, but it's not actually an enemy. Of course, we do have positive aspects. We also have negative aspects. It's always, you know, the coin always has two sides, you know, or two faces actually. So video games. We're going to try to focus on the positive aspects of video games. Why? Because we're going to see that there are some sophisticated constructions and complex constructions, complex words, sophisticated words that are part of video games. And if they automatically become motivated just by being in front of a video game or a game, then maybe it's going to be easier to make our students be exposed to these kind of constructions and um, words, etc., etc. Okay, but let's talk about, ooh, where's my photo? The photo disappeared. Oh my God, I don't know what happened. I can see the photo, but you guys can't. Why is that? I really have no idea why is that. Anyway, well, uh, let's do something here then now. All right. Yeah, technical glitches, you know. So the motivational aspect of games in general now is that they give students a reason to interact with the game because the whole um, negative aspect of making our students or trying to motivate our students to read books, texts, you know, places where they are going to find these kind of constructions and words. The the hardest part is to actually motivate them because they're going to be like, but why do I have to read this book, teacher? I mean, it's not what I like to do. It's not part of what I normally do. I don't normally read this kind of book. You know, I like to read blogs, for example, or I like to read different types of books. And why in the classroom are you kind of like forcing us to read this kind of book? So it's motivational. It's not very interesting for them. So they are basically going to be like, oh, okay, let's read it because I have to and not because I want to. Okay. So, but with video games, for example, things are a little bit different. Why are things a little bit different? Because well, let's consider, for example, Call of Duty. There was a photo. Actually, there is a photo of Call of Duty here. I don't know what happened. You know, well, there was a photo of Call of Duty. Call of Duty is a very famous video game, and this kind of game has some subtitles sometimes because there's a whole there's a lot of noise because it's a war video game, so there are explosions, etc. And sometimes we receive information that we can, it's not so easy to uh, listen to them. So they use captions or subtitles, actually, more frequent subtitles, but anyway. And if our students are engaged, if they are motivated actually to play the game, they're going to interact with that piece of written text without complaints, any kind of complaint. They're going to be like, they're not even going to question, like, why do I have to read this? No, they're not going to question that. They're going to do that because they want to do that. And that's cool. That's what we want, right? That's what we really want, you know. So that's the whole point of gamified activities because gamified activities give learners a reason. They give a purpose to our students. And maybe these words and these constructions that would be found in texts or media. that don't communicate with our students. In gamified activities, or just by gamifying the activity, is going to be more motivational for them, you know. And we know, and we know that experiences influence a lot in the learning process, mainly the positive experiences. The previous episode as well. Take a look at the previous episode as soon as we're done with this, and of course, every other video that's in the channel. But we know that mainly positive experiences have a very strong influence in the learning process, you know. And I separated, oh, this one's working finally. So I selected actually this excerpt. It's a manual that is part of the booklet of the game Deus Ex. All right, it's a game, it's a video game called Deus Ex, and it's part of the booklet. Okay, and we're going to see here that we have three different categories here. Yeah, categories of words and constructions: informal, formal, and technical. Okay, and this booklet or this manual is something that our students are going to learn, are going to read, because they have to read this if they want to understand a little bit how to play the game. They have to do that. And they are going to do that pleasantly. They're going to put a smile on the face and say, yes, teacher, I'm going to do that. I'm okay with that. Or, you know, because they are excited, they are motivated to do that. Okay, to read the booklet. All right. Okay, but let's go back to the three categories that I've just mentioned. Um, Informal. Yes, we have presence of informal words, such as, I'm going to show you guys here. So we have your, keep, very, we have condition. And what are informal words? These are the words that are easily found in spoken conversations, mainly in spoken conversations. Okay, so whenever kind of dialogue or conversation you're engaged in or you're exposed to, there's a big chance that we can see your, keep, very, equipment, recent, there's recent here, history as well, you know. So our students, just by playing this video game, they're going to feel motivated to play this video game. And there's a reason behind that, because what's the reason why they have to read this? Because they want to play the game. They want to know how to play the game. So that's the reason why they're going to interact with this written text. Okay, and they're going to be exposed to these informal words or constructions such as very detailed, and you can this is also very informal. Okay, and we also have formal words and constructions. What are formal words and constructions? These are the words or constructions that are not very easily found in spoken conversations. All right, so for example, we have maybe internal. It's not very easily, I would consider internal a formal word. And then we have um, um, this construction. Look, once you have accessed your information screens, so once you have accessed is not very easily found in spoken conversations. This once, you know, it's not very easily found. So you see, just by using games or bringing in games to your classes, or incorporating games to our lesson plans, they're going to be exposed to that. And maybe even if they don't know how to, even if they don't understand, once you have accessed blah blah blah, they're going to bring it to the classroom and ask you, like, teacher, I didn't understand this. Can you help me? Once you have accessed, what does that mean? So this is going to spark their interest. Okay, so this is formal words or constructions. And we also have technical words and constructions. In this case, we have a lot of technical words such as nanoprocessors, and we also have inventory, you know. So these are words that are very technical. And when I say technical, it's part of that. It's part of the video game. It's not, I'm not even considering that informal or formal. It's very, very peculiar. Nanoprocessors is very peculiar because there's a whole context behind that, which is the video game. Again, Deus Ex. All right. So that's why this is so important. That's why it's so important to actually use games, bring in games and gamifier activities. Why is this so important for our students? First, it's important because it motivates them. It gives our students a reason for them to be exposed to this kind of language, written language. And second, again, there's a difference between spoken and written language. All right. Spoken language tend to be simpler constructions, simpler words, whereas written texts, they tend to be more complex, more sophisticated, with more complex constructions. So we want our students to improve their repertoire. So how do we do that? By exposing them to written text, because that's where they're easily going to find these kind of constructions, these sophisticated constructions and words. But at the same time, if we don't, if they don't see a reason why they have to be exposed to that, like just okay, so let's be exposed to this written text just for the sake of improving a repertoire. That's not enough for our students, regardless of their age. So bringing games, board games, video games, card games. This is really important because then what's the reason? There's a reason behind that. They'll have to be exposed to this language if they want to understand the rules of the game, or if they want to win the game, if they want to learn a strategy to win the game. Okay. Woof. All right, guys. Yes. Okay, so we had some technical issues this episode, huh? So the sound was not good in the beginning, but I think I fixed it. And there was an image that just disappeared for no apparent reason. But I sincerely hope you had a great time. I certainly had a great time again with you guys. And again, if you liked this episode, don't forget to hit the like button, which is down here somewhere, which is a thumbs up, okay? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because if you subscribe to the channel, you're going to have a notification every time we upload new content, okay? And please feel free to browse the previous episodes of Crossing the T's, and there's also a lot of other types of content on the channel here. I'm Rudy Macchiello. This was another episode of Crossing the T's. Thank you very much, and I'll see you around. Bye bye, guys. See ya. Take care. Oh, yes, take care. All right? Don't go to crowd places. And if you have to go out to leave your house, please don't forget to wear a mask. It's really important. Stay safe, guys. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.